What's up everybody, Jeff here, and I think the story and setting of the Drowned Earth is really cool. If you're not familiar with it yet, then definitely go check out this video I did, breaking down the history and the world, and talking about the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are the best part. But anyway, one of the things I find most interesting about the Drowned Earth is the way they do their factions. In the game, there's humans, sentient gorillas known as the Barengi, dwarves called the Dverg, and a bunch of other sentient species. But if you want to play as, for example, a Barengi, you don't have to pick the faction of the Barengi. You can actually play a Barengi in pretty much any faction. And I think this is really cool. It's sort of a pet peeve of mine in any fantasy or sci-fi setting when there's a race who are all just a monolith. They all act the same, think the same, and tend to stick together and only associate with others like them. It just doesn't seem that realistic to me. In the Drowned Earth, most settlements are mixed, and you'll find Dverg working alongside humans and all sorts of other types of people. So you might be thinking, then what divides the factions up? Well, that's what we're going to go over in this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let me know if there's anything else from the Drowned Earth that you'd like to see me do a video on. While you're at it, don't forget to check out the Discord, where you can come hang out with me and the rest of the community. And if you want to support the channel even more, then check out the Patreon, also linked in the description, where you can pitch in a few bucks and get some other cool rewards. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the factions of the Drowned Earth. The word artifactor is commonly used to describe treasure hunters, adventurers, scavengers, and tomb raiders. These people pick through the ruins of the builders to find valuable treasures and relics and sell them to make great profits. While artifactor is an accurate description of such people, what many don't know is that the word actually has a more specific meaning. The Order of the Artifactors is an organization that seeks to advance historical and scientific knowledge for the benefit of all people. Its members go searching for relics, which they then sell to scientists and scholars, who can study them to advance their knowledge and educate the world at large. Becoming a member of the Order is no small feat, as it requires an applicant to have a sponsor from within the Order, undergo a 2-year apprenticeship, and then pass a trial of initiation. This trial usually involves going out into the wilderness alone, and only coming back when the applicant has found something of scientific or historic value. For some, this pursuit is not entirely altruistic. Selling their finds to scholars allows them to make enough money to survive, but warlords and gangsters would pay a much higher price. This puts many artifactors in a quandary, as staying true to the goals of the organization requires them to make a personal financial sacrifice. Do they stay loyal and make a meager living just getting by, or sell out and become rich and powerful? Centuries ago, the Order of the Artifactors was known as the Order of the Torch. It was founded by Corbin Jail, and while the man was known to have good intentions, he also had a reputation as a charlatan. His followers were rumored to rob locals when they were on expeditions, and they were said to act more like a roving band of pirates than the noble adventurers we know them as today. Jail's expeditions made the organization wealthy, and he spent some of the money building Fort Junket, a fortified compound that acted as his headquarters, built on an isolated plateau. Jail's successor, Andokari Rosa, implemented many of the changes that started transitioning the Order of the Torch to the modern Order of the Artifactors. Rosa forged links with scholars and scientists so their discoveries could benefit all, and he also started early versions of the training and initiation regiments that are still utilized today. Other leaders came and went over the years, contributing their own ideas to the organization, and in modern times, Junket still acts as their headquarters. Most artifactor teams operate fairly autonomously, but they still answer to the headquarters at Junket. Slave trading, the sale of illicit goods, banditry, and protection rackets. These are just some of the businesses that the criminals and gangsters of Ulea have been known to operate. While many think of the firms as one large organization of criminals, it's more accurate to describe them as several smaller groups who have similar practices and sometimes align with each other. In a world where the rule of law is fragile, it can sometimes be hard to tell the difference between legitimate business and the firm's criminal enterprises. One thing that sets the firms apart is that all of their dealings come with a threat of violence, a very credible threat of violence. They're known to be brutal and heartless, and as a result, the common people can usually tell the difference between a legitimate merchant and the criminals. In spite of this, the firm's activities are tolerated and sometimes even protected. After all, they can often provide quite useful services. Where there's money to be made, corruption follows, and in some cases they've made arrangements with local governments who look the other way at their shady businesses. The only reason the firms aren't much more powerful is that they can't seem to fully cooperate. The many different organizations known as the firms sometimes form alliances, but sometimes they fight each other. This shifting web of loyalties holds them back from being able to seize any large-scale power. The firms desire wealth and power at all costs, and if they were ever able to all unite, it would be a disaster for civilization. They have many enemies, and sometimes militias will form to fight off or protect against local firms. But more often than not, local governments will form a truce with them in an attempt to avoid the violence. The Iron Guild, an organization of slavers, is a huge rival and enemy for the firms, but both groups understand the benefit of waging war quietly and away from the attention of the people. It is often said that the firms originated in Tartuffe due to their similarities with the culture there. While some of the firms did originate in Tartuffe, many of them originated in various parts of Wilaya. Some came from the natural growth of organized crime within cities, and some are the result of groups of bandits who live off of raiding local communities. Others still came from groups who survived the wild centuries after the event by stealing from other people. Many of them settled down and formed feudal societies, and some of the modern bandit groups grew out of these societies. All of these disparate groups came into contact with the firms from Tartuffe, and over time they began to imitate their culture, until all organized crime in Ulaya seemed to operate like a single entity. The bondsmen would have you think that they're bounty hunters who catch thieves and other criminals and uphold the rule of law in Ulaya. In reality, they're much closer to hired muscle, assassins, and slave catchers. Behind their veil of respectability, they're mostly a group of thugs and mercenaries who thrive on fear and have no moral code. The bondsmen are well known to be involved in the slave trade, and they maintain close relations with the Iron Guild, the biggest slave traders in Ulaya. They hire the bondsmen on as security, extra muscle in slave raids, or to bring back or kill escaped slaves. The Iron Guild are the bondsmen's biggest client, which has only furthered their reputation as slavers. Being so well known for their involvement with the more unpleasant parts of society, one might wonder why the bondsmen try to maintain any air of respectability at all. However, many communities and governments hire the bondsmen, using them as a kind of law enforcement to chase down raiders and bandits. They also use them to keep control of the slave population and the people at large. Such communities often try to portray themselves as being egalitarian, so being able to point to the bondsmen's more noble ambitions can often be beneficial for keeping up appearances. In areas where the bondsmen have official status, they're given quite a bit of power that's easy to abuse. The League of Bondsmen was founded by Jareth Loreda, a Barangi mercenary. He was famed for his work in politics, staging coups or crushing revolts depending on who was in power. When the slave industry started booming, he saw it as a great opportunity, and there was room in the industry for a new player. However, Loreda did not have the business acumen to manage a large enterprise, and another big player was rising in the slave trade and crushing their smaller rivals. Loreda decided to make a deal with the Iron Guild. They would turn over their slaving operations in exchange for lucrative permanent mercenary contracts. The bondsmen and the Iron Guild together managed to choke out all the competition until the Iron Guild dominated the slave trade. The bondsmen soon formed the League of Bondsmen, but found themselves left in the shadow of their much larger partner. Over time, they became the United League of Bondsmen through some consolidation with other mercenary groups. Their business doesn't cross over with the firms very much, and sometimes the bondsmen even get hired by them. But the firm's rivalry with the Iron Guild means that any partnership is always uneasy and temporary. The bondsmen are despised by the militias because of their tendency to think they're upholding the law while acting like they're above it. Many bondsmen feel that they can enforce their clients' desires no matter where they go or what the law is, which makes them hated by the militia and many of the people. There are many dangers in the world of the drowned earth, and very little protection available to the average citizen. As a result, in many places, brave volunteers come together to protect communities, patrol the perimeter, and set up defenses. These organizations came to be called the militias. In Ulaya, the wilderness is very dangerous. Predatory soars, carnivorous animals, and giant insects are only some of the threats, and bandits and criminals are also a danger to peaceful civilizations. In addition, war is becoming more common, as fights over territory start to threaten the peace. Empires have risen, with powerful people taking control, trying to consolidate resources, and levy taxes. While it used to be safe to protect a small town with a few lightly armored people, that's no longer adequate. In some settlements, these small groups of guards have grown into a professional force, something more akin to an army. The best of these forces are no longer volunteers. They're well paid, well equipped, and they patrol and protect their communities, going beyond just defending and trying to actively anticipate threats. Militias grew out of necessity in different settlements. As civilizations advanced, some started pooling their resources and sharing the responsibility of defense with nearby settlements. In the Great Lagoon Network, the Pentangle is a group of communities who all coordinate their defense efforts together. They cooperate so closely that their defense now operates under one organization. Marshal Doran Balat heads up the Pentangle Defense Force. She has a reputation for being a bully, and some think that she and others are trying to expand the influence of their own city to turn the Alliance into an empire under their control. Some of the smaller settlements in the Alliance have started to distance themselves from the Pentangle, reallocating some of their resources into their own local defense forces. They use what they've learned from the Pentangle Alliance and apply it to their forces, allowing them to operate with a much higher level of professionalism, something akin to a small army. The Wayfarers are the real mercenaries of the drowned earth. They belong to a secret guild, whose purpose is not well known, but it's said that it's controlled by a shadowy figure, and even some of the most important among the Wayfarers have never seen them. This mysterious leader pulls the strings for all the Wayfarers in the background, choosing which jobs they take and which they reject. But no wayfarer is ever forced to take a job they don't want, and many of them will steer away from the more sinister jobs for which someone might seek a gun for hire. However, even some of the most morally upstanding among the wayfarers have been known to take jobs for the likes of the firms and the bondsmen. Their motivations for doing so are unknown to all but themselves. Overall, the wayfarers have a reputation for reliability, which has put their services in high demand. There are many ways to make money in the world of the drowned earth, and the Nova Corsairs don't limit themselves to one method. They're pirates, explorers, and plunderers, operating on the high seas, where they practice their trade. Their leader, Queen Dahu, sits on a golden throne in a large palace. She commands fleets of ships and armies of pirates. But she's not simply a common criminal. Her power is backed up by a keen intelligence. Prior to being the pirate queen, Dahu had many adventures as a captain, which allowed her to rise through the ranks, eventually taking power for herself. Now, anyone who finds themselves on her island should beware. And that's it for the factions of the Drowned Earth. I actually had a really hard time picking which faction I wanted to play when I originally got into the game, because all of them seemed really cool. I ended up just choosing based on which sculpts I liked a little bit better. But it's not a huge line of models, so honestly it wouldn't be too hard to collect all the factions. Oh, and of course I bought all the dinosaurs, because of course I did. But anyway, drop a comment below and let me know which is your favorite faction. Also let me know if there's any other topics in the Drowned Earth you want to see me cover. Head over to the Discord where we can chat about the game more. Consider supporting me on Patreon, where you can become an extremely cool kid and get a shout out in each one of my videos, just like the Steam Powered Scoundrels, Dogmatized,